I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, Season 1, Episode 19. We're in, like, the mage exam arc right now. The very early stages of it, and I'm very excited.
We are both very excited.
Yeah, we got to meet Lavine and Kane, our Frieren's, team for the first part of this exam.
Her new buddies as well as almost, like, students.
Yeah, their friendship goes way back, and their relationship goes way back. They are a bit,
hot and cold.
Hot and cold. Yeah, they fight a little bit. And
yes, but they care about each other, and they see each other's, good points in their personality.
Yeah, they complete each other.
Yeah.
On the other end of things, we have Fern paired up with Ubel and others. Ubel is a little scary, but we haven't really checked in with them as much as we have on Frieren's end.
And Stark is somewhere.
He's Stark.
He's just
doing Stark things. Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
Maybe he's like hitting a mountain, making another hole.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well laid plans.
We like making plans.
It's like in what, episode 5? It's Stark. Breaking the tension.
Feels good going with the idea of that fake hero idea.
Wow. People trying to steal it.
They get it.
Oh gosh. Why are you so excited?
I would trust her to protect the still from other mages, though.
Jesus. They're as tough as dragons.
I love seeing the different staffs that like fit the personality and color scheme.
Wow. Wow. You just do it on a smaller scale? Wow.
Powerful binding spell.
50 centimeters?
How are we gonna get that close to one? I want to know how Fern and Ubel caught one. Rain, bringing up Rain again. We like get it to funnel into one area?
Is it a better strategy to like bide your time in hunting a still so you don't have to worry about people coming after you?
I'm wondering if that's what's gonna happen here, is that they're gonna take so long formulating a plan and catching it that they won't have to deal with fighting off other mages.
Oh. Land.
不要な戦いを避けるのも魔法。その前に水の補充だな。中央に湖があったはずだ。
Uh-oh.
は日没まで潜伏すれば第一次試験はどうした？そううまくはいかないみたいだ。
She
Already
sent
detecting
someone.
people?
道だと思っていたけれども似たような地形が何箇所もあった。試験区域を囲むように結界が張られているんですよね。水も通さないんですか？具合から見て結界が張ったのは1週間以上前だね。盆地の真ん中にある湖に集まっていますね。湖の周りに受験者がまとまっているとは限らないでしょう。そうですね。じゃあ水を持ち歩けます。同じ生き物であるシティレはそうはいかない。なるほど。最大の水場である湖の周りに張り込んでいるわけくらいなら探せばあるだろう。
I don't know. Uh-oh. Oh, shit! Nice, Fern! Close combat?
I like this matchup.
Sharp.
And the girl
Oh.
there. Aerie?
Hmm.
Frieren? Frieren. What are we doing?
Freezing it. Now the stills can't even get water from there.
Everyone really is hanging out around here.
Wow, that's insightful. We're getting so many names.
They must have a plan to catch one. That's pretty insightful of him. Shoot. Effortless.
Truly useless.
Because of all the magic, all the mana. Like the monsters?
I love this guy, but he's trouble.
I mean, we got the word bloody with him, so...
Yeah, but crafty was what word I was thinking of that we got for him. Jesus!
They 100% look dead. Stop. No way.
Wow.
That's how they lure and hunt their next prey. Unqualified to be first class mage.
Outdated ideas. The quality of mage is irrelevant. Need only be symbols of power. Interesting.
よりはるかに優れた魔法使いが迫害される様を山ほど見てきた。力は恐れられる。恐れの権威など長続きせん。魔法は誇り高いものでも何でもない。あんたくらい弱いのがちょうどいいってわけだ。ってくれるな、若造が。なら目をつむっていても勝てるわ。
Water.
Is she divvying up the water?
She can control water. Is she placing it places?
全然探知できないね、第2パーティー。
魔力を隠して潜伏しているな。今まで見てきた水場全
The
部
same.
だが水に魔力が込められている。
Or she's at least touching each one of
何
them.
も感じない。わかる？
俺もわからん。第2パーティーの仕業かとかけた本人すら感知できないだろう。
Wow, great at detecting mana.
だがシュティレなら感知できずばにはもう近づかないだろう。
そんなことして何が？
Tricking everyone into because they could barely sense it.
ない水場がある。
第2パーティーは必ずいる。
All of the groups that can't sense it like Denkin did will be just sitting around.
試験区域は広大な魔法使いを見つけられるわけだ。
Especially if they're pulling shit like this.
どうせ奴らは居場所を教えてくれる。
行けや泉に手当たり次第に
Huh.
込めてきた。
That's awesome.
水場がある可能性はまだあるけど。
That's
シュ
fine.
ティレの使える水場が制限される。じゃあ私はここでシュティレを待ち伏せするよ。
She's gonna
Oh my
completely.
god.
マジかよ。魔力って完全に消せるもんなんだな。完全じゃないよ。さすがに動けば少しは魔力が漏れる。わかんねえよ。私たちは見張りだな。足引っ張んなよ。うっさい。力になれるんだけどね。全部結界に弾かれちまう。
You've been very useful, Kane.
Whoa. Look at it. It's so cute.
Reminds me of a puppy.
Like a deer puppy.
Yeah, I like it.
Wow. How close it is to Frieren.
And it's because the mana. Orange feathers.
Wow.
5 centimeters. 5 centimeters, right?
Oh, I loved how, like, thin they were.
フリーレン、やったか？喧嘩を売った甲斐があったぜ。これで第一次試験突破だね。
Fight.
いや、
Now we have to fight.
Found them.
やはり魔法を使い、この瞬間だけはごまかせ。
Whoa!
早く
Whoa!
Fast.
出るのはもう遅いみたいだね。
ジュベラード。
He's on Warball's team.
What the
What?
fuck?
Those two teams are fighting.
また距離を取った。 古い戦い
But it's
But it's
old.
old.
私のおじいちゃんと戦っているみたい。使わないのね。手の内は見せないつもりかしら。的な魔法以外は使わないように言われてますから。師匠の方針なの。はい。この時代の魔法使いならそれだけで十分だと。
Let's see if it really is. That's why Denkin's a real
なんだ
threat.
ろうね。この違和感は魔法使いと対峙しているみたいだ。
You have no
あ
fucking
なた
clue.
も難儀ね。そんな戦いが相手だったら今頃は死んでいたわよ。それはおかしいです。この中で一番強いのはあなたですよね。
Wow.
魔王軍の残党と戦ってきたの隊長よ。実戦経験の桁が違うが使うのは貧困
Devoid of
Devoid of
character.
character.
卑怯な魔法。
Underhanded.
使ってる子。多分殺
I
され
think
ちゃうわよ。
they're pretty well matched.
そうですか。
Okay, that was Frieren Beyond Journey's End, Season 1, Episode 19. right off the bat, one of the most fascinating things about this episode to me is learning about the specific spell Frieren had used to capture the monster last episode.
The binding magic.
Yeah,
the
and
folk magic.
The idea of when Frieren's explaining it and says that it's folk magic, and as long as you're within 50 centimeters, it's not
5 centimeters?
5 centimeters, sorry. It's not as niche. It's vague.
Is it 50?
I thought it was 50. That's what I had written down.
That makes some more sense. I'm
50 centimeters. Okay.
I'm sorry for
no worries.
interjecting.
But what's really interesting to me is the lack of specificity when it comes to bird, right? Mm-hmm. And I have to wonder if the fact that it's able to apply to various creatures within that umbrella of bird, I wonder if that's because it's rooted in folk magic and older magic. Even in episode 14, when we're talking about flying being a repurposed demon spell, we're given these crumbs of magic that's closer to the origin of magic and closer to the chemical makeup of magic, right? The ingredients of it and understanding it, the more it's able to apply to, and the more you're able to turn it and bend it to your own desire. And I also want to bridge that idea with the idea of Fern being strictly told what kind of spells to use within battle, and how that you're only using basic spells in fighting, and how that could be more beneficial because the basic spells are rooted in something that's more understood in terms of chemical makeup of magic, you know?
If you have something that is so foundational, then it is kind of obvious that foundation could then be built on stronger.
Yeah.
That if you have something so just so foundational, so old magic, fighting my grandfather. I think it's really important what you're bringing up here about this idea of repurposing, how we're able to kind of utilize this spell, or we could have utilized this spell in a way that it wasn't necessarily originally created for or intended for.
Yeah.
It wasn't created for bird-like monsters, but these monsters were so bird-like that it just happened to work. And honestly, that kind of takes me back to that moment of saving Kane, and I'm like, Frieren used a spell that wasn't intended for this monster on this monster when this person was in a life or death situation. Her ideas and planning and strategies, and also kind of her hopefulness that things are going to work out, and her just, I'm gonna try this.
Well, it's because of the hobby of collecting spells, like it or not, just by the nature of collecting spells and you not knowing what specifically you're searching for some of the time until you find it and then you learn it, there are going to be spells that can apply to a lot of different situations, whether they have to do with combat or retrieval and capture because of a hunter and folk magic, that Frieren's just a walking encyclopedia, right?
She's just I wonder if this will work.
And the limited nature of this girl, I'm not going to act like this is all that she can do, but earthbending, holding up rocks, being able to have control of the earth. And if that's all that you're focusing on and know, versus something that's so fundamental that is a key building block for various different types of magic, I don't know. I think that there could be something there.
Right. One of the most interesting things to me about this episode was the parallel and relationship that was being shown to us between the Geisel, which is the Aryan monster, and the Still, the bird we're trying to capture. This idea that both of them have a very strong ability to sense mana, but one uses it in order to avoid prey, or avoid being preyed on, avoid predators, avoid people, and avoid mages and magic. They have they don't want to be around that. And the other uses it in order to kind of detect and mark and follow and hunt prey.
Yeah, how I'm even seeing it is, it's almost to me a comparison between Frieren and Werble. Whereas Warble would be more synonymous with the Geisel, and Frieren would be more synonymous with the still. Like, of how their
They're
interpretation of
how they're approaching this.
like, even, like, thinking about the mana, and, like, mana, and also the vibe of, like, how they're approaching it, but also in disposition. Like, the less flashy nature, the more, like, calm and let things come to me, like, disposition
we
versus...
do get told that he has like an underhanded way of using his magic. But yeah, that's just really cool that not only with what we've been talking about with the binding spell being able to be utilized on both of these two creatures, but also the idea of like why they're both in this test area and what they have in common. But also that's what we're basically testing about each of these contestants for being a first-class mage. We're testing their mana detection, and if anything, Kane has kind of made that test even harder than it already was, which was like, don't go into the sky, but also don't go into the sky, but then don't touch the dead bodies that have already been preyed upon. But then now Kane has mixed her magic and her mana into all the bodies of water she could find, but only someone, I would say, as like sitting still and patient in the way that Frieren is waiting for the still in this episode, as Denkin can sense it. The two that are with him cannot even sense that there's like mana involved in this small little puddle that they've found. And so it's like another test like on top of it to all of the people here. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. No, it's okay.
I was to make a last comparison between like Warble and Geisel, the obvious one, right? Just like preying on, like having prey that you're.
That's what he's doing.
Exactly, versus waiting.
Instead of going to find his own meal, he's letting the meal. Well, no. Instead of waiting for the meal to come to him, he's going to get it. Yeah. And he'd rather steal someone else's food than like making it himself. But what I wanted to say was that Kane and Levine, we are seeing in this episode that they would not have survived this test, probably, if Frieren wasn't on their team. And I find that interesting because in a show where we're having this kind of arc of getting tested on things, there are multiple tests. We've seen in shows that have had situations like this that some characters get almost an easy pass through certain tests based on who they're teamed with. Yeah. And we've seen that before, or who they are matched up against. We've seen that before. And for this, we have two characters that were shown with Kane. She's the one about to be attacked by the Geisel. Yeah. She would have been dead if Frieren didn't show up. Frieren even brings up in the first episode of this like kind of certification arc this idea of like, how good are you guys at detecting mana? That idea. And Frieren's also the one that's kind of teaching them about the still, coming up with the plan, telling them what to avoid and how to kind of act here for both their safety but also for the plan. Yeah. And I don't think that these two characters, unless they could all out fight against another team to steal it still, that's the situation that's being set up here. It seems like the test makers knew that only a few people would actually be able to succeed at catching the still. So really what this is it's a brawl. We're locking them in a cage for a cage match. Like, we know that only a few people are actually going to get the still. That's not what we're testing, really. We're testing if you can either steal someone else's and like your magic is strong enough, or if you can hide yourself and your still long enough. Or protect it.
Do you think that if obviously it was like you couldn't have helped it, the fact that any type of mana was having to be produced in movement of activating the spell in order to capture the still, like you couldn't have stopped that, like it's impossible to hide that, was the language we were given. But if we were able to go away, do you think Levine, Kane, and Frieren would be able to keep the still overnight, like, and mask their presence, like, until then? I feel like they could. I trust Duncan in terms of his capabilities, even though I don't know him that well. And his idea of it, like, if they were trying to hide, it would be impossible to find them in this amount of space in so little time.
Yeah, the only way that he's able to sense them and that they're able to act on Frieren is because she uses magic.
Yeah.
She moves. She uses the spell. She says, like, look, see, if I lift up my hand, you can sense it. And they're both, Lavina and Connor, are like, no, we can't.
Yeah.
He could. Denkin could. And I think that what we're seeing here with this test of what's happening here is kind of subverting like my original expectations once the test had been told to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, well, what are we trying to get out of these contestants, these mages that are trying to get their certification? What are we trying to test in them? Especially when we know in the Northern Lands, the reason why you want to be a first-class mage is so that you can be hired on to go into the Northern Lands further, that you can be trusted to protect a party, strong offensive magic. That's what we're getting here, is like, you either need to be strong enough to fight head on, or you need to be strong enough to hide your presence from a threat.
Yeah. Man, the idea, I wish, okay, so there's obvious, like, comparisons you can make to, like, the Hunger Games, right? And within,
like the barrier arena.
But, like, in my mind, I almost hope that the association of, like, the proctors of this exam are watching this go down. And if they were, I would have loved to see their reaction to the freezing of the lake. That would, like, I would love to see, like, what their initial response to that would be. It was so cool. It was such a cool sequence.
So I feel like if it was on TV for them, it would be similar to how the photo was kind of holographic in the air. So then these screens recording it would be kind of holographic through the air.
Yeah.
Or they'll start dropping presents through the barrier.
Oh, God. But, man, I loved the idea of freezing the entire lake over, because, like, you didn't really understand it at first until they zoomed out a little bit of how many other teams were already gathered around there and already going forward with that idea. And it's like Frieren managed to, like, 3 times jump over that idea, like starting, like, with her group of Lavina and Kane behind, like going over what they already know, to come to the realization that this is the best place to go. Not even for a second dwelling on the fact that they, like, should do that. They didn't even question, like, oh, should we be doing that like the rest of them? Frieren, like, just hopscotches over and gets to the point of, nah, this is how we're gonna, like, counterplay it. I love it.
And it's really, I think one of the things that makes me the happiest about it is you never want an overpowered character that's like, nah, step back, I got this. You want the other members of the team, even if they are weaker or not as talented, you want them to serve as some purpose that helps the main character.
Yeah.
Especially in an anime situation that is going to have a battle or a fight or strategies involved. You want, as the viewer, other characters to be able to play some role and be able to be seen for the positive impact that they could have on the scenario. And in this plan, both Lavina and Kane are used with their, like, strongest point. Their magic that they are the best at.
Yeah.
They both obviously are. I mean, Kane was able to infuse mana, but so little, enough that still wouldn't want to go there, but too little for anyone to sense it,
Majority
except for
people,
someone like Denkin and maybe a few other people. And then Lavina is able to literally, to the point, like, ice that entire lake to the point that it would have been futile and useless for it to be melted.
One of my favorite things that has been, like, introduced within this world is the idea of classes for mages, and specifically how it doesn't necessarily equate to levels of power or capabilities. Like, obviously, we're, like, Frieren doesn't even have a class, right? Other than her past credentials that nobody's really able to recognize. And Fern has a class, but just because she's a lower class than a second class, that doesn't necessarily mean at all in the slightest that she wouldn't be more capable of them. I love that idea. It's so cool.
I'm really intrigued by how each of these characters judges who is strong and who is not. especially because in the show we've been given the idea of being underestimated due to Frieren's mana suppression and teaching Fern to do the mana suppression. That there's an underestimating being done of those two characters. But there's not really an underestimating being done of Fern when it comes to these other human mages.
Mm-hmm.
They're more so an interest to the fact that the magic Fern uses is all basic and nothing like super interesting or innovative or new. But Airi, which I think is how I'm going to pronounce her name, Airi is like, you're lucky you're not, you know, she like marks that Fern is like incredibly strong, but she's like, you're lucky you're not fighting Werble because these are the only techniques.
Do you want to read the lines? Because I think they're so interesting. So in reference to Frieren, Fern says, she said that it's enough to defeat mages of this era, which we were already alluding to earlier. And then we get the line of dialogue about what it would look like if she was fighting Werbel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really wanted to talk about. What is this feeling of wrongness? It's like I'm fighting an experienced mage. Well, you're going to struggle. If you fought Werbel with your technique, you'd be dead by now. And Fern's response specifically, that doesn't make sense. You're the strongest one here, aren't you?
Fern marks her as the strongest one. Which I find exciting that it's not the one that's flashy and underhanded. And I wonder if we get this idea that he's this captain.
Yeah.
Would you think that it's at all purposeful of him to be so flashy and over the top in order to be the distraction or be the decoy or be the front man in order to be like, I actually have someone stronger in the back? You know? He's an up-close fighter. He's gonna come in swinging while we're giving time to the... He's almost like, you know, Stark's position.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, Stark, you need to fight the dragon for this long while we're, like, waiting to cast this spell.
Yeah. He's the captain of the Northern Magic Corps, which we were already told.
He has to
that
know
fought
how to
against
utilize...
the remnants of the Demon King forces. He has far more experience in battle. And, you know, his magic is devoid of character. It's underhanded for the sole purpose of winning. Like, okay, we get that entire idea already previously from Frieren in terms of deception. Like, I don't want to disrespect him because we haven't really seen what he could be capable of, but I put my trust at the moment within Fern and like Frieren's interpretation of these events, and through that, I kind of trust Fern and her analysis here.
And another reason I'm going to say that I don't think that I think a little bit positively of this character that we know very little about is the fact that Flamme set up this idea with Frieren of like, what we do is going to make us an enemy and despised by other mages.
Yeah.
And if he's being thought of as fighting devoid of character, I feel like him and Frieren might get along.
Maybe. I'm interested in seeing where that goes, though. Do you think anybody that we know with a name is going to die?
No. But then again, I didn't really think we were going to see the corpses of other...
Even though we were told of, like, the fighting and
takers.
killing could be a possibility, it didn't really hit in terms of, like, how real it would be until we saw those bodies. That being said, it wasn't from a mage killing another mage, but I think it's a possibility.
There are certain shows that have you feel way more surprised when there's an actual severity of an injury or a death. And I feel like Frieren is one of those shows where a lot of the time and the days that you spend here are whimsical, wholesome, fun, you know, crying, feeling nostalgia for people that we have just even met.
Yeah.
And it's a very nice experience, but there have been some really cool battles and obviously some tears. But I feel like this moment in this episode of seeing the actual dead bodies, I'm like, every time we came across an issue and had to fight in order to protect the people in that village when we were with Sign and it was that like flower.
Yeah.
We were able to wake them up.
Yeah.
And when it was fighting Aura the Guillotine and the other demons, they were demons. And they were empty suits of armor that we were fighting. I feel like this is like this episode, when that moment happened, I was like, wow. And I remember, actually, that's very nostalgic to me of the other shows I've watched that have had tests or exams, is that moment in time. Like, I'm gonna go like, there's like 3 shows I can think of off the top of my head. I don't know if I should list them, because is that a spoiler that they might have exams or
Don't list them. I feel like it's obvious enough.
Okay. Well, I did think of one that I didn't know if it was obvious or not to you. But I think for any show that has had tests or exams, it has always, at least for me as a viewer, been one of the points and like a turning point in that series where you were seen and like you see yourself what the severity is gonna happen. Like a lot of times it was like children and in some of the animes that had things like that, or you hadn't really seen someone die yet, or blood and the life's at stake and how the fights were actually gonna go, how brutal they were gonna be. Are people actually gonna die, or is this gonna be like we're actually still alive the next episode? And that always was like the turning point time period in a lot of those shows of like really seeing like, oh, we're actually gonna kill people.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was kind of like, in this moment, I was like, wow, some of these people are actually gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that like a conversation happens between Denkin and Frieren, because one of my favorite tropes or conversations to happen in fiction is when like one of my favorite anime has a moment like this, Hunter x Hunter, or like has several, but like so do a lot of animes, but like when somebody who is very knowledgeable and capable in their own right, but like has this aura of like wisdom that it's like, oh, they're able to make a judgment that the audience is able to trust. I love when that character refers to the character that I love as a monster. Like, I want Denkin to come face to face with Frieren, and for Frieren to pull some like out of pocket shit for Denkin to be like, oh my god, she's a monster. Like, she's insane. She's a genius, you know?
He already thinks very highly of the second party. I like that, like, no one knows who it is on the second party. They don't know if it's all 3 members that are impressive. They don't know which singular member would be the one that's impressive, or has this plan, or came up with the plan, or would be the stronger foe. And it takes you back to last episode where the proctors are scanning the room and they're talking about kind of who are the higher contenders, or the ones that the proctors are like most looking at, thinking of like their potential.
Yeah.
And Frieren, they're like, who's that?
I have 2 more things I want to talk about. Number 1, I love Himmel so much. I loved the flashback with Aizen. And, like, it gave me, like, when, you know, we saw that Stark was scared, and Frieren remembered that time that Aizen was, that his hands were shaking, right? But Himmel's, like, response back being, like, I'm scared too. You know, like, I thought about trying to give, like, a speech to up the morale here, but this is what I did. And then Aizen responds with the idea that it eased the tension, and that he's no longer tense. And, like, that idea of that, like, relatability and like humanity and friendship within that party, it like makes you feel less alone and more comfortable. Like the pressure's not even all on you at that point, because you know people around you are feeling the same way.
Mm-hmm. I liked that moment too. I think it reminded me back to the episode where we find out that idea of like the fake hero, like he's not actually able to pull the sword.
Yeah.
And
I think like humanity's ideal of a hero would never be able to be the hero that they'd actually want, or that would actually be the type of hero that would make a name for themselves for 1,000 years, for 500 years. Humanity couldn't, like, when they would conjure that up, it would be a fictional ideal that wouldn't actually be what is necessary to get the job done.
And that's exactly what was created with Himmel, is a, you know, there's some truth in it, but it's not completely the truth. He didn't actually pull the sword.
It's the truth devoid of personality, you know?
I just wanted to say one more compliment to Warble. Well, it's a compliment, but also just kind of pointing out something that I'm thinking, and that's that this character, I believe, or at least this team, probably could have caught the still themselves.
Yeah.
I feel like we're saying that Aries stronger. Fern's telling us that, and I'm gonna trust Fern on that. That Aries stronger than the other two, but Wurbal was able to suppress his mana so much that Fern only noticed him once he attacked.
Yeah,
which is
true.
the same as Frieren only being noticed by Denkin
True.
the moment that she does the spell with the still.
Very good
So
point.
that tells me that Wereball could have sat at that pond's edge and probably tried to enact the same plan as Frieren.
I mean, it goes hand in hand with the idea of like how we're interpreting the perception of Warble and
underhanded.
Exactly, yeah.
Why would he go with having to try to think of plans when he can just go in and take?
Last thing I wanted to talk about was something Denkin said this episode when they're talking about like mages dying, and it's the idea of like if you can't cut it, you like this is our standard of a mage. That's why you're going to die if you're taking this test and you can't, swim. Denkin says, "Damn, they're outdated ideas." I'm surprised, Denkin. I thought you'd be on their side. And then what Denkin says here is really interesting. The quality of a mage is irrelevant. First-class mages need only be symbols of power. No matter how powerful you are, unless you can control a person's hearts. What was last?
Oh, I didn't get there.
Unless you can control people's hearts, you're as good as powerless. I've seen countless mages far more skilled than myself fall from power and be persecuted. Interesting.
Well, we weren't given this idea with him that he could be pretty cutthroat and bloody in his kind of rise to power and wanting to be a part of be an imperial mage. So I do like that idea of like getting more into that character, what we've already been told about him, and kind of how he views magic and why he wants to have it or why he would want to take this exam, get this certification.
I wonder if it's like just bleeding over into wisdom and like political it takes a level of like being present and playing mind games to be like within a political world of power struggles that surpass just raw power.
And the boy that he's talking to, I'm going to call him a boy because obviously Duncan's an old man, so we're going to go boy in comparison of age.
Fair.
The boy says back to him, he's like, "Oh, so I could beat you, so you're weak," is what he says. And Duncan's like, "No, I could wipe the floor with you."
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Do you think he actually could? Or when he says his ideas of you don't have to actually be that strong as a mage, you just more need to be able to be that symbol of power, be able to control people's hearts. You don't actually have to be like that level of strong.
Yeah.
Is that him just saying that as a precedent and not necessarily like what he's fighting for or hoping for himself?
I think it's like a definition of what a first-class mage is, right? Like, he's saying that the definition of a first-class mage shouldn't be all just about raw power, but about how like intelligence that goes hand in hand with like knowing how to interact with people, like people loving you, like that's powerful in its own right.
I mean, and in a way, that is how some people are going to pass this test, is not because of raw power, but like because of being able to suppress your mana, have really good plans, able to like utilize and work well with your team. Like there's other things that could happen here other than having like
it's interesting
really
because
powerful.
I don't feel like when he's explaining it and bringing up control people's hearts, right? I feel like there's a bit of that I'm lacking understanding because of my I don't know Denkin very well, but it's easy for me to connect like something that isn't exactly the same, but it being something about like the in like the genius nature of thinking outside the box in a way that Frieren does. But again, I'm excited to see and learn more about Denkin and what he means by stuff like this.
I am also excited by that. I think that I'm curious next episode what the layout's gonna be.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are a few different fights that are now being set up. Like, not only do we have Frieren, Lavina, and Kane against Denkin's party, but we also have Fern's party against the 8th party with Worbel, Sharf, and Aerie.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I wonder if the episodes kind of, are we going to be matching up in the same way that Fern's party's matching up against the 8th party? Is Frieren's party going to like divvy up, okay, you against this person, you against this person, you against this person?
Yeah.
Are we going to be seeing these like solo matchups? And next episode is just going to be like flipping between the different matches?
I don't know.
I want to see all of them.
Yeah.
So like I'm kind of hoping that I at least get to see like a touch or a taste of each one of them, because I feel like the teams of 3 that are kind of being pushed to the forefront, not only are most of these characters, if not all of them, in the intro, I feel like all of them would be entertaining in the fight or have an interesting way that they fight with their magic, and I want to at least see a glimpse of them.
I agree. I mean, that one dude was able to turn like flower petals into needles. Like
I know.
Like that's
Sharp.
so niche. All right, that's all I have you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.